What's up, everybody? Welcome back. John Levesque here. This is Build a Bot episode number 3. I am joined as usual by Kent Weir and Matthew Farmer. And today we brought another member from the team, Abi Rathanevelu. Abi, how you doing, buddy?
Awesome, John.
Good,
happy
good.
to be here.
Awesome, man. And I see you rocking the Power Cat shirt. Nice, good way to represent. Abi is on the Power Cat team with us, and he's here today to talk about authoring in Power Automate. So, Abi, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do on the team, and then go ahead and take the presentation away.
Awesome. So, my name is Abi Rathanevelu. I'm a PM in the Power Cat team, specializing in Power Virtual Agents. And I've been working with a lot of our customers, helping them onboard to Power Virtual Agents, and also being successful building this awesome AI-enabled bots for their various customer care scenarios. Very happy to be here.
Very cool. Okay, so you have a presentation you're going to start with. Feel free to go ahead and present that and take it away, sir. The floor is yours.
So today's session, I was planning to talk about how do you author intents in Power Virtual Agents. And in a way, I wanted to do it in a more holistic way so that we not only talk about Power Virtual Agents. I'm sure a lot of you have seen various demos where people are creating topics and deploying topics and building bots. But I wanted to kind of approach it end to end in terms of what authoring means as a practitioner for you as a bot builder, right? So what are the various processes that are involved, and how does Power Virtual Agent fits in that process, and how do you effectively build a bot using the best practices in authoring, right? So that is what I was planning to do today. And we have a packed agenda. So I've been thinking of giving you guys a brief background for authoring per se, and also run you through a quick demo. Then we'll talk about some of the processes involved in authoring, and we can also talk about some of these cool capabilities within PVA that enables effective authoring of your bot. And finally, some of these tips and tricks and best practices you can use as a bot builder, as a bot author, to really make your bot shine. Right? So that is going to be the agenda today. So how does it look, John?
It looks good, man. I'm stoked about this, especially some best practices. Kent showed us a few last week. I learned a lot, and I've been sharing those all over. I did a couple of user groups, and I stole Kent's tips, so I'm hoping I can find a few more to steal this week too.
Awesome.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So let's start with the conversations, right? We have been having conversations right from as kids, right? We have been talking to each other as humans, and we have been able to contribute what each other say. But have you thought that when you're talking to a bot, right, or AI-enabled bot, or even a phone system or IVR, is it that seamless? How many times, let's say, like when is the most recent time one of you, let's say Matt, you have talked to a AI bot, which is not Power Virtual Agents? Let's say.
Customer service, talking to customer service, trying to, I won't use the name of the supplier, but trying to talk to customer service. So I did a pre-validation through a bot about my issue and the problem I was having. And so I gave them a bunch of information that probably allowed them to pass my query onto the right end user agent.
Okay. How did it go? Was it like very seamless, or was it a bit frustrating, or how did you feel about it?
It's a good question. I think the one I'm thinking I did like 2 days ago, it was okay. I knew I was talking to a bot, right? But it still was asking the right information, and kind of what it asked me didn't surprise me. I knew why I was putting in the information I was.
He served you up a meatball, Matthew. You're supposed to say it was a terrible experience. I really hated it. It wasn't virtual agents.
No, it's actually a good thing, right? It's making a case for Power Virtual Agents.
They would have been much better if they used Power Virtual Agents, which is, of course, John, what I meant to say. You're quite right. I bet it wasn't as easy as Power Virtual Agents. There you go.
So one of as you said, like definitely there have been really a mixed bag of experiences when it comes to bots, right? Most often, at least in my experience, I've seen that it's not always a very smooth experience, where sometimes you feel that the bot is not able to comprehend what you're saying, because there are a lot of things going on in terms of what you're trying to convey and how you're conveying it, and whether the bot is able to capture that or not, right? So if you look at it, the reason being that is, as humans, when we communicate, there are so many other things which are in play when we talk to each other, right? It's our conversation tone, it's the various other cues. Let's say if I ask John if I could borrow $20 from him, if he says yes, then I know that he wants to give me the $20. But let's say if he just turns the other way, or he just keeps silent, I can understand that probably he doesn't want to give me that, right? So there are so many other cues as humans for us to understand the conversation. Whereas for the bot, all you have is basically the words, right? The words which you're using as a bot author to make the user understand and then take him to the best possible response to the bot. And the reason why I'm calling this out is um, that is why authoring is a very key part of building a very seamless and effective bot. And that's where Power Virtual Agent comes into picture as well. Because when you're talking about building such a seamless bot, there are two important things what you need. One is the AI behind it, the NLU capabilities behind it, and how powerful it is to be able to comprehend the words the user is saying and be able to take you to the best possible response. And the second part is the ease of use in building such bots, because most of the time, as you guys already know, in the traditional bot building process, it involves a lot of pro devs and data scientists as part of building this bot. So who are I think if you remember Matt's previous session, we talked briefly about how hard it is to translate this information and build these bots, whereas you have these capabilities directly in PVA itself. And so that's where PVA, I think, really shines in terms of authoring, because we have this super easy and very simple interface, user experience, which helps you to build these conversation flows, which takes you to the right response. And not only that, you can do a bunch of things there. You can really extract the information from these various responses that the user says, store a lot of context as part of the conversation, and then use it in various places so that your conversation becomes very, very seamless, right? So that is what we're going to talk about, how PVA can really help you to build these super easy authoring experiences. And then cupcakes. If you're wondering like why cupcakes are here, you know, tell me, like, have you ever bought one cupcake? Like, if let's say, John, if you went to a store, have you ever bought one single cupcake?
I mean, I have, but it was at a specialty bakery, and it was like a $6 cupcake, and it was like a
Oh,
red velvet cupcake with cookies on it. Like I think that's the only time. Otherwise, though, I want a dozen. I always want many.
yes.
I want always.
Yes, me too. And that is exactly what I wanted to deliver here. PVA is not the authoring part of PVA is just one part of it, right? But PVA as a whole ecosystem and as a tool, it is a very powerful system. Though it is very simple, many people keep talking about how easy it is for people to build bots in PVA. But the big picture is there are so many other powerful goodies within the whole ecosystem which you can leverage. And so I want to briefly take a tangent and talk to you a little bit about the architecture of PVA. So this is probably the um, uh, most comprehensive architecture you might see of PVA, which is available for external use. And if you look at it, if you see this green box, what you see here is the actual PVA authoring piece, which does a bunch of things. Like, you can do the authoring using the portal. You can do the testing using the test client. You can deploy a bunch of channels, channel management. You can check the analytics for the topics after the conversation happens. And you can also generate a lot of topics, bootstrap topics using a bot, right? But just look at the surrounding ecosystem. What are the other things you have here? First of all, the
Yeah.
channels. You build it, you author the topic in one single bot, but you have a countless number of channels where you can actually surface this, right from Teams, Power Apps, and also to even voice. So eventually you could even have a bot replacing your IVR, and it will be actually consuming the topics which you are authoring and then answering the questions, right? So that is like a super powerful capability. And next thing, as you guys know, you guys are the experts on Power Automate here. It's not, and the kind of extensibility it offers in terms of using Power Automate and bot framework skills, right? Power Automate catering to the low code spectrum of the audience, whereas bot framework is for the more pro code complex scenarios, right? So this kind of really puts everything together, and the extensibility is the key part of it. Now, upcoming, we are planning to introduce bot framework composer dialogues as part of PVA as well. So what that means is after right now we are working on the feature, but eventually when you have that, you'll be able to build your dialogues in bot composer, and you will be able to import it within PVA and use it without even having to host a separate skill instance for it. And so all these are available to you as a bot author as you build these topics. Okay. And let's talk about the authoring experience itself. Many people think that when you actually author the topic, it's only in the Power Virtual Agents portal. But now we have also introduced an option to build all these awesome bots right within the Teams itself, the Teams app itself. So the whole authoring experience of Power Virtual Agent is available within Teams. So as an author, you have the flexibility to not only go to the portal, but let's say if you're building a bot for your internal audience, that's exactly the power of the Power Platform, right? Anybody can go and build an app and deploy it everywhere. Similarly, anybody can go to their teams, build a bot, deploy it for their fellow employees. Even if it is a small team of 4 people or 5 people, you can actually build a bot and deploy it. Think about how powerful it is for a business user or a low-code user to be able to author this without having any overhead of depending on the IT or data scientists to tell them what to do, right? So that's why I wanted to kind of reiterate that it's not a single cupcake you get with the PVA authoring, but it's a whole box of cupcakes which you can potentially get.
I'd just like to say that I hate cupcakes, but donuts would be a similar, donuts are fine with me. That's all good. And never buy one donut.
Yeah. And
that's a good point. I've never bought a single donut ever. Never, ever. I've always bought at least half a dozen. Who buys a single donut?
Yeah. So let's jump into the very high level of various stages of building the bot. Right? So I wanted to put this to give you an overview of what goes on. Definitely the authoring piece, what we are going to talk about in today's session. But then also equally important are the testing, deployment, and the monitoring pieces. And I'm sure we'll have more sessions in the future for that. And let's dig deep into the authoring part. With that, let me just jump to a quick demo. And we can talk about some of those contexts. And the main thing which I wanted to show you guys as part of this demo is the goal of authoring and how that topic flows, right? And if you look at it, I would say that as you build a topic and you author a topic and deploy it in the bot, the key goal is to be able to detect the correct intent of the user and also deliver the best possible response. And this can be possible by the right set of triggering, the right set of conversation design, and using the right set of best practices. And that is exactly what we will try to see in this particular demo. Okay, so for this demo, I just decided to use one of the simple topics which are available within the PVA itself, so that you can follow along very easily. And some of these concepts about topics and authoring you might be already aware based on previous sessions, but I would still want to give you guys a quick overview of those so that you can get started. Most of the topic authoring happens under the topic session, where you have the test client for a testing purpose, but also like the list of topics over here. But one of the key, very, I would say, like less discovered option here is the suggested topics, right? So many times we just go and start writing topics, creating topics, but suggested topics is a very powerful option for you guys in case you want to go and get topic suggestions. Many times, a lot of these business users, they don't know like where to start, right? So that is where if you have they already have an existing FAQ or existing information where they can use to build these topics. So the suggested topics for a novice user is super powerful. So what it does is you could potentially point your FAQ site or a list of content site, and the bot can mine that information and then give you a list of suggestions. Then you can make a decision whether you want to add it. So this is a great way to bootstrap the topic. So let's quickly see how that does that. And for example, I just took this site for the CDC FAQ, and let me just quickly add it. And
So
you say start.
One thing we should call out there is to do this, the link actually has to be an FAQ.html, correct?
The link has to. That's a good question. So I haven't really tested it on the HTML piece of it, but definitely I will go and check it. But one thing that you wanted to call out is the link has to be publicly accessible, right? So
Yep.
if it is an
And
authenticated website, then maybe you will not be able to hit that particular website. So that is a key point there.
Yep, definitely need that. And then in my experience, I've tried to have it consume a couple of other sites, and what I have found is you very specifically in that link, it has to say FAQ.html. And so you'll find many of those all over the web. The biggest websites format their FAQs in that way. And
Okay.
so just keep in mind, I've seen it fail a couple times. It didn't consume questions and answers right on a page that was not that way.
Okay, yeah, great point. Yes. And another sneak preview of this is we are also planning to introduce mining this information from PDF and Word documents in the upcoming cycles. So what that means is you could potentially have this list of content in your PDF documents, and then you can use that to create these suggested topics. And that is going to give you an awesome list of topics, right?
Yeah.
So in this particular case, if you look at it, so it's going to take us some time because it's a fairly large FAQ. Let me see. But yeah, it has created it. And you can, okay, there it goes. So just look at the power of this. It just created 404 new topic suggestion in a matter of minutes for you as an end user to go and think about whether it makes sense for you to add in the bot. So great way to author the topic if you want to bootstrap it very quickly. A lot of our customers during the recent pandemic crisis response use this capability to quickly bootstrap these bots and then deploy it to their end customers. And you can see here, this directly doesn't get available within your product or within the bot. You have an option to go and review it and then decide whether you want to add it or not. Right. So this gives you a great set of questions and answers type of topics where it's what we call as a singleton conversations, where the user asks a question and immediately they'll get the required answers, and then you can, if it makes sense for you, you can add it to the topic, or else you can just say that delete a suggestion and it will go away. Right. So this is just one example.
I was going to say, so hey, cdc.gov, if you need a bot, we just created one for you. Hit us up. We got you taken care of.
Yes.
Another thing, sorry, Karen.
I was just going to say, so with those, all of these suggested topics, like, do we have the ability to modify them? Like, can we modify trigger phrases if we want, or even add additional steps to the actual topic itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you add it to the topic, it becomes like any other topic as well. So, right. So, and at that point, you can go and make all the changes what you want to do, and then you should be able to use that topic, reuse that topic.
Cool.
So you can see that this topic has been moved, and then now it is available as part of the list of topics, and then you will be able to edit everything and then add new content. Anything you wanted to add here, you can add that. So it starts behaving like the actual topic itself.
Nice.
Yeah. And one tip here is that, as I said, this is a great way for building what we call as the long tail topics. if for many of your business processes, there will be a lot of use cases across the board, right? But only, let's say, 20% of those top use cases will be the most requested ones. But there will be a lot of such use cases which will be still be important, but not very frequently asked. And you don't want to spend too much time on building those test cases on those topics. So those kind of topics, you can use the suggested topics to create this simple single turn question and answer type of conversations, which you can add directly into the bot, and then that will be able to handle your long tail.
Okay. I was just going to say that one just thing to call out, basic thing there, that this is quite a good example. If people are still unsure what topics actually are, this idea of a question, an incoming question from the bot user that is then triggers a set of steps or a response from the bot. It's as simple as that. And it can get really complicated, or it can just be question and answer like you have there.
Exactly. Great point, Matt. So exactly. So so in Power Virtual Agent, when we say topic, it's typically very similar to what is referred as intent outside. So that is what we call as topic. So basically, it is what receives the user's query and redirects them to the best possible response there. And let's jump into a another quick demo. Let me just take this one other simple example what we have here. I just made some modifications to this to show you some of the capabilities. This is a topic on store locations, and I've just added some changes there. But I'll show you a quick demo on what are the various capabilities this topic is touching. The first thing is, as you guys know, the trigger phrase itself. Trigger phrase is mainly used for trying to match the intent to a specific topic, for the user query to a specific topic. Just gonna start with the check store location. Okay, so this particular topic is helping the user to find what is the store location that they're interested in. And as you can see, when I say check store location, it matched the intent and it took me directly to this particular topic over here. And it's prompting me with a set of questions. And these questions, as you see, it's a multiple choice option. It's one of the topic authoring components. And in that, I have marked 4 options for the various cities. And in this case, all those 4 options is appearing for the user as an option that is selectable. Now, let me just go and type, instead of clicking one of these options, let me just go and type the name of the option itself. So though I did not actually click on one of the available buttons, though I just typed on it, the bot was able to identify that I was talking about Denver, and it was able to fill that particular option with that variable, right? So now the PVA store location variable has been populated. You can see that all this information in this particular view here, you can see that this particular variable has been filled with that option. Now, how did it manage to do that? It did it because of this capability what we have as slot filling, which we'll talk a little bit more briefly later. But what it does is the NLP capability of PVA knows that you're talking about Denver, though you haven't clicked that button. So it selected it and it filled that variable, and then it's taking the user to the next flow. Now it's asking me, what is your name? So let me just go and give my name. And what it does is, this takes my name and uses it in the next step of the conversation. Again, in this case, it took it as a variable. What it says is bot.username, which I've already configured as an author. Right? Now, there is a slight difference between this variable and the previous variable. The previous variable you saw PVA store location, whereas here you are seeing bot.username. So this is what we call as global variable, or a variable which is available across multiple topics. So if you look at this bot variable, you can see that this is being collected not specifically for the topic, but also across multiple topics, so that whatever value you collect as part of it will be available everywhere, right? So I collected the name, and it says that my name is being stored there. Then I am just collecting the next part, which is, so what is your email? Let me just give another email here, and let's say So it asked me the next query. It stored this in the variable. It still knows that I am talking to the Denver store. It knows that my name is Abhi. This is my email. All that is still in the context. Then finally, it is able to ask me what is the query. I'm saying that okay. You have size 10. I know there are some shoe do you have a query? I know there are some shoe aficionados in this audience. So, Kent, do you have any specific queries for the Denver store?
Kent's muted and he's talking over there to himself.
Thanks, yeah. No, it's windy here in Calgary today. So no, I'm looking for like the Air Jordans, basically the 3 series with red and black in the Chicago colors.
Wow, I didn't even know that there are so many options here. Okay, so I sent this query as an end user to the manager, and then that is getting stored, and then an email has been triggered to the manager. Now, what happened is it collected all those variables, put it in triggered the Power Automate flow, and then made sure that the email has been sent to the manager. And if you want to see the details, you can go and see here. And I'm sure Kent already has made a great series on Power Automate and how it can be used in Power Virtual Agents. Another great set of tools which you can use in the context of Power Virtual Agents. And you can see here it just got executed and before 28 milliseconds, and you can see the output there. And now the mail has been sent. Now let's say I'm just going to check something else. I'm saying like check store hours, which is basically switching the topic to a different topic, right? So now so what you just saw right now is did you mean? So when there is a trigger phrase which is very similar to 2 other topics, the engine itself, that is the AI or the NLP itself, will prompt the user to be able to tell you that, okay, which one do you mean, right? So in this case, I selected the simple topic, which is about the store hours, and both the trigger phrases are very similar. That's the reason why this was triggered. But then when I'm triggering that simple topic, if you noticed, I was able to populate my name as part of this topic, right? In the what I collected in the previous topic for store location, my name as Abhi, that was directly used by this particular topic, and then this particular topic is prompting me with that particular information directly as an end user. So now you saw a bunch of key concepts here, and I really want to kind of dwell deep into that. Let's come back to our presentation.
So let me talk about this really fast. Actually, this problem right here, actually, I had to go and rebuild my entire bot because I did not understand this. Coming from the Power Automate world, what I tried to do was build all of my logic myself behind my greeting. I don't know why I did that. Nobody taught me that, but that was my natural inclination of how to go from building a flow to building a bot. And so seeing this, right, where you create each individual topic and just trust that the bot can navigate back and forth between those topics for you is how you do this. And so I think this lesson is paramount to someone that's just getting started. It's going to save you from making a bot and then a bot 2.0 like I'm doing right now.
Exactly. And
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I guess one other thing I just wanted to clarify. So what would have happened if you, like in this specific example, you already had entered basically the topic that collected the username? What would have happened if you would have tried to use that bot.username before it was set? What's the behavior there if you ended up in a topic that's not asking you for the username, but you've already referenced it in the topic itself?
Yeah, in that case, what happens is it will take you to that specific topic where the bot variable is collected, right? So that will take you to that specific topic, and from there it will prompt you to provide the bot variable. Then after that, then you will have to transfer to the new topic. So that is the
Okay. So you won't get like a runtime error because you've got an uninitialized variable.
No, you won't get a runtime error.
No, that's cool. And then I think the other thing I was just going to bring up is that sometimes the did you mean can be misunderstood in terms of its benefit. I think sometimes people feel like that's a bad thing that you're getting prompted. But what people don't realize is that by you reinforcing that decision and you clicking on one of those buttons, it actually helps the AI engine actually improve itself. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And that is, again, yeah, this is a great point which you brought up in terms of did you mean and its pros and cons, right? Like one of the key, in fact, it's a bit of annoyance. I agree with you that once if the user is being asking a query and if the bot is repeatedly prompting, did you mean this particular topic versus another topic, right? So the key thing there is the reason why the engine is, you have to first take a step back and figure out like why the engine is doing that. The reason why that engine is doing that is because you as a bot author has provided the engine with two topics with very similar semantically sounding words, right? Trigger phrases. So that is the reason why the engine is not able to disambiguate between these two topics, and it's asking you to pick the best one. But the best part of this is, as you pick the right option, the engine will learn, the AI model will learn that this is what you meant for this particular user query, and then it will self-improve it so that in the future, you will be able to have less and less of such a disambiguation. And this is where also your best practices comes into picture, the way you are authoring these topics, so that you can really have a set of unique trigger phrases, or you can handle it as part of your conversation design so that you can reduce the occurrence of such did you mean questions. Makes sense. Awesome. Okay, let's jump into the authoring process. And now we saw the demo. I just wanted to kind of touch upon what is the process and what are the capabilities in context of this demo so that you can mentally have a mapping towards how you can use it when you go and start authoring your topics. We talked about bootstrapping, how you can quickly get the topics going. We talked about your effective use of variables, a little bit about trigger phrases and slot filling, using actions. All these things come together as part of the process, right? So when you talk about process, it's a very high level based on what we have seen so far. It's a simple three-step process. One is starts with the design of what needs to be in the bot. And this is very critical because this is more of a planning, I would say, planning task where you can look at various signals you have. It could be your existing customer chat, human agent chat history. It could be your existing FAQs. It could be your existing topic suggestions, and then use them as a signal for you to come up with the inventory of topics you want to automate. Right. One of the key thumb rule is what are the topics which you think which can be like I would say the 80-20 rule, right? Like a lot of customers are asking about, and that is the signal for you to top. So most of the cases, it's the 20% of your top queries which most of your customers are asking about. So you want to really use the time and then use those topics and prioritize them to be built. Second thing which talked about adding trigger phrases and entities and how to do the effective intent matching. And third, finally, is the building the conversation path itself. How do you create the topics? How do you share the bot? As you might, if you guys already don't know, there is an option to even share your bot with multiple stakeholders. So you could actually go and build the topic, share it with other users. They can also co-build the bot with you and co-author the topic with you, right? So this is a super collaborative experience you can have as part of building the topic. And also entity management, how you can effectively use it as part of building this conversation. And finally, action management, right? We won't be able to cover everything, but I will definitely give you an overview of each one of this, which will help you. And jumping into the capabilities per se, we talk about capabilities in the context of the process itself, right? And if you look at it, the first process we talked about, the first step is designing the topics. And a couple of, I would say, I would split it into three big buckets. One is knowing your audience, right? Who are you actually building the bot for? What is your audience like, right? Whether they are a tech-savvy audience, what is the demographic of that audience, how do you want to simplify or make it as complicated as possible, right? So that is a very key aspect which will determine your what bot personality, your style, your conversation style, everything, right? And a lot of it also is driven by the brand of that bot and what the bot is, brand of that organization, and what the bot is trying to represent, right? And the second thing is listing all the use cases. It comes down to what we talked about. What are the potential things the user might ask the bot? Make a list of it. Identify what is going to be the input-output attributes, various states, and what are the various contexts you can collect for each of those use cases. And finally, where you can introduce actions. That is very, very key, because actions is like means that you are able to basically do something through the bot what potentially the human agent might have done, right? So that's a huge deflection aspect for you there. And as you do that, you also have to keep in mind of reusing existing content. Like we just talked about that, how topics can be these small units which can be reused. And PVA has the capability to let you reuse these topics and also bootstrap the topics using the suggested topics, as we just saw. And coming to the components per se, this when you go into PVA, we briefly touched some of these things, but what are the key components you will have is ranging from trigger phrases, system topics, various type of topics, and various nodes which are part of the actual authoring experience itself. If you look at the topics, one of the key things which I wanted to call out here is the fallback topic. The fallback topic is when the engine is not able to understand what the user is querying. So in that case, you can redirect the user to a fallback topic. It's under the settings, and you can actually customize the behavior what the fallback should be. So you could potentially capture the user query, trigger a search and give them the results, or you can do a ton of things in the fallback topic. So that will still give you a huge amount of coverage for a lot of your long-term, long-tail queries there. And finally, in the dialogue node as well, the message node, question node, condition node, these are the most used nodes, and action nodes are the common nodes. But few other things which I want you guys to think about is the agent transfer node and the authentication node, right? So the agent transfer node, if you are using Dynamics 365 Omnichannel as an engagement hub, we have a first-party integration. So when you're doing the agent transfer node, you could potentially give the whole summary of the conversation to the omnichannel directly, right? But if you're even using a third-party engagement hub, which is not omnichannel, still agent transfer node will help you to drive the right signal for the bot to escalate to that agent, so that you can have an adapter which will take the user to there. So at any point, as an author, you can make sure that your user is not abandoned, right? You can make sure that the user is reaching an endpoint there. And finally, the authentication node. This is a super powerful aspect as well, because a lot of these conversations, they are not generic conversation. They could be specific to the organization. You want to have an authenticated user. So that time you can use configure AID or any other OAuth ID provider, and then you can use the authentication node to authenticate the end user as part of this, right? So we talked a little bit about this. Matt briefly touched upon it, about what topic does, right? And what is the role of topic in the authoring. So this high level flow, I'm trying to give you an overall context of what is happening there. When the user's query come into the topic, the AI does what we call as the AI magic. It does a normalization to make sure that your topic is really optimal for entity matching, for the intent matching, right? And as part of that query, the AI also extracts a bunch of entity information. We'll briefly look into what is that entity information, and then the intent triggering happens. That is where the bot responds, and as part of the intent triggering, the route optimization happens. That means once the moment the topic is triggered, till the point you get the response, you want to take the user through the most optimal option pathway. As an author, you want to take them to the most optimal pathway. What that means is avoiding repetitive questions, taking them to the right set of responses, right? And for that purpose is where entity extraction and slot filling comes into picture. And we have our dialogue policy engines, and also we talked about context using variables. All those things will help you to optimize the route selection so that you can take the user to the best possible response. So if you look at, remember what we talked about, the goal of authoring. One is to detect the best response, and then the second is one is to detect the best intent match for that particular query, and the second one was to take the user to the best response. So both of that is covered as part of this flow, right? And talked about trigger phrases and entities. As we talked, matching the correct topic or the intent is the key goal here of adding trigger phrases. There are a lot of best practices around trigger phrases. We'll talk briefly. And many people think that entities is helping the triggering part of it. As of now, the main use of entities and start filling is mainly around skipping the questions. So, but eventually we are adding new features to also, which will also help you to use entities for enhancing the triggers. And let's see how the topic triggering itself happens with the trigger phrases. When you look at the user query which comes into the PVA bot, when you're actually entering as an end user, you're entering a user query, that user query will be matched against a set of trigger phrases by the NL engine, right? And it will look at what is the closest, semantically closest trigger phrase for a given user query. And it will see what is the topic associated with that, and it will trigger the topic. But then if there are two topics which have very similar trigger phrases, that is when the did you mean prompt happens, where the bot says, sorry, I did not understand. And then it promotes with all those various potential conflicts, right? And this can be avoided, as I said, by making the topic triggers fairly unique and following some best practices. The second part in this particular example of flight ticket, if you see, I've said that I want to book a business class ticket to Seattle. There are a couple of entities which are already there as part of the user's utterance. One is the city name, which is Seattle, and then there is also a type of ticket, which is business class, right? And these entities are, we also call them as named entity recognitions, are information that the NL engine captures so that it can be used at a later part of the conversation to avoid repetitive questions. And that is done through what we call as the slot filler, right? So if you look at this scenario, the user says that I would like to book a business ticket to Seattle. They figured out that they are talking about business class tickets. They finally they went to that specific branch, and they've given them the output that, okay, business class tickets are not available, right? They're not prompting the user again saying that, okay, which class do you want, or which city do you want, right? So those information is already being extracted out of it. And if you look at PVA per se, there are like 27 predefined entities, commonly used entities like city, age, state, all those things. What that means is you can super effectively as an author use a city. For example, let's say you want to use a state entity, right? And you have, let's say, store location only for 2 states, but remaining states you don't have any store locations. You could potentially use an all other condition, and then even if you have only for Washington and Oregon, and let's say if somebody types Texas, the engine will be able to understand that you are talking about the state, and it will directly take you to that particular all other conditions, and it will show that specific answer or best possible response for that, right? And finally, the custom entities per se, which will help you to define what are those entities and then capture that based on whatever your needs. Right. In your case, let's say if you have a product version like Office, there are tons of versions of Office. You might have support content for only few versions, but any other versions, if the user is mentioning, you can basically redirect them to the right content or the fallback content using the custom entities capability. How does this look so far? Any questions, guys?
Abby, I was just going to say, if we had to simplify summarizing an entity, would it be fair to say like an entity is a thing that the bot can identify, and we help the bot to say, here is a type of thing you should identify, and when you identify it, store that. Would that be a fair summary? It's like being able to work out what a thing is that somebody might talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you articulated it very well, Matt, and that's exactly what entity does. And the best part of that entity is it avoids the user bot from asking dumb questions when the user has already provided the information, right? So when the user already says that I want business class ticket to Seattle, you don't want the bot to say that, okay, tell me which city do you want to go to, right? So those kind of things which the bot will avoid, and that's where the slot filling comes into picture as well. And you can see here today, like with the slot filling, we talked about skipping the questions. Like, as I said, we just showed in the demo, I typed Denver instead of selecting Denver. It's still able to fill it and take the Denver value. Like that, you would be able to fill the slots and skip questions as part of that as well. And
so let me jump in here real quick, guys. We actually have to go ahead and wrap this up today.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have to run to our next meetings. All of us have hard stops. We have talked about so much today. We talked about authoring, we talked about topics, we talked about entities, we talked about a lot of the intelligence behind the scenes. I'll be sure to do my best to go ahead and put some breakdowns in the description so that you can click through and get to the spaces you want to see. But Abhi, I want to thank you very much for being here and putting on this show for us today. Really appreciate it. Awesome.
Yeah, no worries, John. Thank you so much. And finally, I just wanted to close with one simple thing about the conversation path. We just putting it together, everything else what we talked so far. As we talk, the final part of the authoring process per se is the conversation path where you can leverage all these concepts we talked about, like in the context, the singleton versus multi-turn, fallback, handoff, and also finally the actions. And I would definitely recommend you guys to check out the videos from Kent on building actions with Power Virtual Agents.
Yep, and we'll have this in the description so you can check out some of the other videos. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. Shout out to you guys at home. Thanks for coming and joining us for another week. We will see you very soon. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.